Episode 106 with Sandra Whitten.
We have to speak up for people who were afraid to speak for themselves, because there really is a Democrat mafia down here, and you don't run up against it.
From the capital of the Lone Star State, we're engaging with Republican leaders across Texas to keep our priorities front and center, spotlight our rising stars, and making sure that the grassroots has all the tools they need to push back the Democrats and make Texas even brighter red. You are part of the elephant herd.
Welcome back to the Elephant Herd. Today we are with Sandra Whitten, and we're going to be talking about the gains that Republicans are making in traditionally Democratic areas. Sandra ran in 2020 for Congress in Laredo, and she increased the vote count by over 20,000 votes, and she's running again this year. Sandra, welcome to the Elephant Herd.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it is so exciting to hear. You know, we hear about this stuff. Oh, you know, Republicans can't win on the border. You know, they can't win in Laredo, and yet you're proving it wrong. Why don't you just first question, tell us a little bit about the success that you had in 2020 and where you think you're going to go for 2022.
Well, you know, I can't take any of the glory, for starters. I do have to give it all to God, because he's the one that called me into this fight. He told me it was going to be crazy and, you know, rival some kind of crazy story that you would imagine from the Bible. And I kind of have always teased this is the manna to milk and honey campaign, and that's exactly what it's proven to be. You know, we only raised $25,000. However, we raised a movement and a moment in history. You know, we're at a breaking point. I was told as a white woman, I would never, and I hate to kind of come out with race right away, but I would never even come close in this district because it is such a Hispanic district. And we've seen quite the opposite. People are so excited that somebody was not only willing to take on, you know, the Democrats, but that I was not from here. I kind of defy all of the odds in every aspect. You know, I don't speak Spanish. I'm not born and raised in South Texas or even Texas. I'm a transplant. I've been here for 12 years, but I'm giving people hope. I'm giving people a future. And, you know, one of the things that they say is people come here to South Texas, and once they get here, they either love it or they hate it. Well, I kind of got to be in between. And so when I fell in love with this place and the people, more importantly, I knew what I had to do. And I started seeing that people needed hope, and they needed somebody to stand up and be their advocate. It's what we teach kids: stand up and, you know, speak for those who can't speak for themselves. And so that's exactly why I decided to run. We have to speak up for people who were afraid to speak for themselves, because there really is a Democrat mafia down here, and you don't run up against it.
One of the things that I think resonates no matter where you are is the dignity of work and the faith or the factor of family. And it doesn't matter who you are or where you are or what color your skin is. The Republican Party is for dignity of work and for the importance and the value of the family.
Well, and that's exactly it. And when I started all of this back at, you know, officially I started running in 2019, but in 2018, when I started getting involved with the party, that was the first thing that I kept saying. I said, these people are the most conservative people I've ever met in my life. They believe in hard work. They love God. They love their guns. They're Republicans, but there's never been Republican presence down here before. And so when I kind of came out gun swinging like, hey, let's do this. And people thought I was crazy. And especially around the state, the establishment was like, no, that's Democrat country. We don't go down there. And I'm like, well, whether you come or not, we're going to fight for it, because this area is really Republican. They just don't know it yet. And so instead of using the word Republican, we use the word conservative, and man, people start coming
it's
over
amazing.
Like crazy.
You lose every race that you don't run in. And the fact that we have Republicans that say, oh no, we don't want to run there, that's a Democrat place, that is, bluntly, that's insulting. I think to those of us that are conservatives, Republicans, it's insulting that there's people that are like, oh no, don't run there. You know, we're going to give that to the Democrats. I don't think there's any reason why we should cede a single inch of Texas soil to the Democrats.
Well, and that was exactly it. And people were blind to that. And even down here, they didn't, even within the Democrat Party, they really have no idea. They don't even know what their Democrat values are, because they're told who to vote for, and they're such I don't want to use the word compliant, but they believe so deeply in, hey, you're a person of authority, so I have to trust you, that you know, they just were being bought and sold. And we as Republicans sat back and did nothing for a whole generation, several generations.
You're down there on ground zero on everything that's going on with the border and immigration. You know, I know it seems like we're a long way away from election. We're not. People need to be engaged and maybe in the fight. Can you give us a little bit of a report from the field of what's happening with this absolute Biden disaster on the border?
So we, you know, there's so much to it. And Kamala Harris, our beloved vice president, has only added fuel to the fire. However, you know, what we're seeing here in District 28, what we're seeing between Laredo and McAllen, which is exactly where District 28 border lies, we have 4 counties on the river. We're seeing the hardened criminals come through. We're seeing the MS-13 and some of the other just unbelievable bad guys that President Trump warned that they were sending through. Those are who's coming through District 28. When you go to Del Rio and further points west, when you go to McAllen and further points east, yes, you're going to get some of them, but you're really getting the asylum seekers, the ones that, you know, truly are coming over because they want a better life. Because they really do. Why else would you sell yourself into slavery if you did not think it was going to be a better way of life? So these people are doing that there. But what we're seeing here in my 4 counties on the border, that's not what we're seeing. We have a couple asylum seekers, but not to the extent that we're getting on the other parts of the border. But our numbers are up over 150% here. And the reason that they're so high, and these are unaccompanied men.
So this is not unaccompanied minors. This is men. This is able-bodied men.
Right. Now, we do have unaccompanied minors. Those numbers are up also, but not like the unaccompanied men. And these are the ones that are going straight to the stash houses, to go straight to the back of 18-wheelers, that are stealing cars, that are ripping apart ranches and things along those nature. These are the kind of people that you don't want in your communities, but because we're drawing all the attention to McAllen and Del Rio and Carrizo Springs and everything else, where the women and children are, which we do have to protect and take care of, the bad people who are going to abuse those women and children when they all get through on the other side, they're all coming right up the middle, right up that 35 corridor. And so we're running into that triangle. Now, the reason that we need to worry about this right now, or the reason we've got to put our political brains on right now, is because the people who are still in office, right? Because unfortunately we could not completely flip this district, right? So the people who are in office have been in office for years upon years upon years upon years, longer than they've been in office since I was 3 years old. Okay. So when we start looking at that, these are the same people who are now crying wolf that have been wrapped up in sheep's clothing. So they're over here pretending like we had no idea that this was going to happen, but they're getting money from the private prison systems. So they've allowed this problem to happen. And if you don't get fired up about it right now, you're not going to care about it in 2 years when it's election season again.
Absolutely. And if you're supporting someone that's been in this fight and has been on these borders and not in the fight, again, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If you're supporting these people, you are not supporting Republican values, and you're part of the problem.
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, we've got Democrat sheriffs here along the border who are going, you know what? We're not okay with what's happening. There really is a problem. There is a border crisis, and we've got to do something about it. It's not just the asylum seekers. The Zapata County, for example, their sheriff kind of broke away from the Democrats and said, you know what? No, we do have to speak up. We've got to let people know that there are hardened criminals that are coming through our counties and tearing up our way of life and causing more damage than we could possibly repay in a lifetime at the current status. But then when you have your vice president pledging $310 million to South America because of climate change and conditions and hurricanes that are causing all these issues. And I'm going, wait, what? And then she's like, you know, it's because they don't have any food to eat. So of that $310 million, do you know how much money they're actually sending for food? $55
million out of 310, and they're blaming it all on food.
Well, food and the climate.
That's right. It's food and the climate. Food and the climate. So what are some things that we can do right now to help you?
Well, to help me personally, you can go sandrafortexas.com and click contribute now. And I truly covet anything that you can do, because we have been literally on the front lines of this, fighting it. We're meeting with our sheriffs every week. We are, taking news crews and things like that. We have not slowed down since November. And, thanks to Biden and Henry Cuellar for making this even worse, we're having to, we have not gotten a breath. We thought that we were going to get a breath at Christmas time, and that just did not happen, because this crisis is real. This is affecting people every single day. And when you have the talking heads saying the exact same thing, it's detrimental for the people who are involved in it. The other thing that you can do, and this is as an American, this is as a Texan, if you see something, say something. Just in Houston this week, we had a stash house that was hit with over 97 people in it, and they all came right here from South Texas. So if you see something that just slightly looks suspicious, please report it. And I know that our men and women that have a badge pinned to their chest are so overworked, and they are so underappreciated. But guys, you've got to do something. If you see something, say something. We say that to kids in school, and I'm saying it to you right now, even if it's drug stuff, because that's what a lot of this stuff all stems from. It's sex trafficking.
Absolutely.
And it's drug trafficking.
It's just a human tragedy. And if you love people, you'll do something about the border. If you love people, you'll secure the border. If you love people, you'll enforce the laws. If you love people, you'll support candidates like you that are willing to stand in there and make a difference. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask you, what is it that keeps you up at night?
You're listening to The Elephant Herd. We'll be right back.
Promises. God's promises. He makes them and he keeps them. Hi, I'm Pastor Schober. I'm wanting you to look with me at the 46th Psalm. It's a great promise. It says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. I guess I should ask, are you in trouble? Are you expecting to be in trouble? Somewhere along the way, we're going to be in trouble, and we need God. He's one to whom we can run and hide. He's a fortress. He's a refuge. He's our God. He's our place of safety. We have security and assurance and confidence when we're in God. So I encourage you to do that. Wherever you are, whatever you're getting into, run to God. I'm Pastor Schober. Remember, God keeps his promises.
From the capital of the Lone Star State, welcome back to the Elephant Herd.
We've been having a conversation with Sandra Whitten, and Sandra is in the front lines on the battle for the border, for the Laredo area, and really for the heart and soul of Republicans that are willing to fight for these issues. Thank you so much for being here, Sandra. What I want to do now is I want to ask you, what is it that keeps you up at night?
It's kind of a twofold question. So if you don't mind, I'm going to give you a double answer. So of course, the human trafficking aspect of what's happening on the border is it's atrocious. As a mom of children, I've got 4 kids. My baby, I have one daughter, and she's 2, and she's Hispanic. So I see these children coming across the border. All my children are Hispanic. I see these children coming across the border. I see my children's face, and it's terrifying to me what's happening, and that we have been silent for so long. Our silence is our compliance. So that definitely is something that it makes you nauseous as a human, as a Christian. If you're sitting silent, you got to do some reevaluations. The other part of this, honestly, is when I started this, almost 3 years ago, I just kind of started seeing some of the biblical ramifications of what we're coming into. And I said, you know what, I don't know what I'm fighting, but I have to fight, because I see that if I don't, I won't be able to look my kids in the face in 20 years when they're standing in a bread line, because I said nothing. I wasn't willing to get out of my comfort zone. I wasn't willing to fight the fight. I'm a patriot. I grew up in the colonial triangle of our nation, the Williamsburg, Jamestown, Yorktown area, minutes away from Washington, D.C. I understand the founding fathers' concepts and way of thinking probably better than most people today, because I was there 3 or 4 days a week, talking to George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. And so to see the land that they gave birth to, essentially, and that what their passion was for it, just completely being blown to smithereens, it makes me sick. And we've got to preserve this. You know, my 16-year-old has a constitutional law teacher who teaches anything but what our founding fathers had in mind. Every time I hear him, like my skin just crawls. So we have got to preserve the history of our country. We've got to preserve our Constitution for our kids, because if you've been paying attention, President Biden has been saying, you know, what's in the Constitution, your amendments, they're not absolute. So he's not trying to take away your guns by any stretch of the imagination. He's trying to take away your Constitution. He wants to take away what makes America America. And that's something that we have got to fight back with every single breath that we have.
I think every man and woman needs to be absolutely on fire. If you're not engaged, you need to get engaged. If you're one of those people that you are only engaged in the election, get engaged now. We need men and women like you, Sandra, that are running for Congress and they're doing these things. And, you know, people think, oh, it's just the election day. There's a lot of hard work that goes into this. And so I just want to encourage everyone that's out here. I want to encourage you to support Sandra, to support those other men and women that are out there fighting, even though it seems like we're a long way off from the next election. One more time, what's your website?
www.sandrafortexas.com. Sandra for Texas.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for being on the Elephant Herd. You know, if you do have a question or a comment or suggestion for another guest or a topic, you can text me directly at 512-729-5712.
The Elephant Herd is provided by Texas Political Training and Empowerment and the Republican Party of Texas, and is not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe to the Elephant Herd. Leave an honest rating. You can get all the links to your favorite podcast listening apps at texasgop.org/podcast.